You're welcome back. This is Newsfile. It's your most authoritative news analysis platform, and here on Newsfile, we put Ghana first. You know for a fact that this is your most authoritative news analysis platform. Thank you to all of you that I encountered in the course of this week in Tema, at the DW Academy, at the CDD training program for journalists in Kumasi. And thank you all for always keeping your dials here and your channels here. Thank you for the encouragement on Samson's Take. My guest on the first issue, we are looking at the KPMG reports as reported by the presidency on the GRA SML deal. Yasewa Sapong, Director of Support Services, SML. Inusa Fuseni is lawyer, former MP Tamale Central, former Minister Lands and Natural Resources, Roads and Highways, and joining us by Zoom, the brightest, Bright Simmons, Honorary Vice President, Imani Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for making time to join us on Newsfile.
Thank you, Samson.
Great. So let's set the tone on the SML subject matter. The presidency on the 24th of April issued a statement. It's headed, President Akufo-Addo acts on KPMG's findings and recommendations on the transactions between GRA and SML. It begins with a little history. That the President of the Republic, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, on Wednesday, the 27th of March, 2024, received the final report of the audit conducted by KPMG regarding the transaction between the Ghana Revenue Authority and Strategic Mobilization Ghana Limited, SML. The President has acted on the findings and recommendations of KPMG and has, by letter dated Thursday, 18th April 2024, giving directives to the Ministry of Finance and the Ghana Revenue Authority to do a number of things. We need this in context. The findings, among others, are that no technical needs assessment was done prior to the engagement of SML. However, such an assessment was not legally required for engaging SML. After SML was engaged, a Chamber of Bulk Oil Distributors Industry report, a 2021 Ernst & Young audit report commissioned by GRA, and a report by the Revenue Assurance and Compliance Enforcement of the Ministry of Finance all found that there might be under-reporting, under-declaration, and potential revenue leakages. A fact industry watchers all agree to. This is only a footnote. On 3 occasions, that's number 2, between June 2017 and September 2017, GRA sought approval from the Public Procurement Authority, PPA, to use the single source procurement method to engage SML to provide transaction audit services. PPA did not grant approval. Subsequently, GRA engaged SML as a subcontractor to West Blue, which was already providing services to GRA at the port. SML eventually took over the services provided by West Blue when the latter's contract came to an end on the 31st of December 2018. GRA then added external price verification to the services offered by SML and signed a downstream petroleum audit agreement with SML. All these were done without PPA approval. Following a change of leadership at GRA, remember Professor Ade left the GRA's head also, there were changes. The new leadership sought to regularize the contracts with SML. And on the 27th of August 2020, PPA ratified the procurement processes used to engage SML. In 2023, the Ministry of Finance, GRA, and SML entered into a revenue assurance services contract. 2023 contract. The 2023 contract extended the scope of SML services to include upstream petroleum and minerals audit. PPA approval was obtained for this contract, which is now the governing agreement for the services offered by SML to GRA. Another issue raised by KPMG is the absence of parliamentary approval for the contracts, given that they are multi-year contracts under Section 33 of the Public Financial Management Act 2016, Act 921. Such contracts must have ministerial and parliamentary approval. KPMG also found that there was no evidence that the 2018-2019 contracts, transaction audit services, external price verification, and downstream petroleum audit were submitted to the GRA board for discussion and approval, contrary to the GRA Act, Corporate Governance Manual for governing boards, councils of the public services, and sound and accepted corporate governance practices. The GRA board approved the extension of SML services to cover the auditing of the upstream petroleum and mineral sectors, as specified in the 2023 contract. Point 3. Regarding the transaction audit services, KPMG concluded that SML partially delivered on the service requirements. However, given the observations made during the investigation, GRA may not have obtained all the expected benefits from the service. This is also partly due to GRA's lack of instituting monitoring and evaluation processes to assess the performance of the service and hold its personnel and SML accountable for non-performance. 4. Regarding the external price verification services, KPMG concluded that SML delivered partially on the service requirement and that, given the observations made during the investigations, GRA may not have obtained all the expected benefits from the service. It was noted that ICOMS has inbuilt capabilities of external price verification, among other functions. 5. Regarding the downstream petroleum audit services, KPMG determined that there was an incremental volume of 1.7 billion liters and an incremental tax revenue of 2.45 billion for the period under review. There were also qualitative benefits, including a 24/7 electronic real-time monitoring of the outflow and partial monitoring of inflows of petroleum products at depots where SML had installed flow meters. This serves as a deterrent for under-declarations. Other qualitative benefits include 6 levels of reconciliation done by SML to prevent revenue losses to GRA and the sharing of discrepancy reports with GRA to follow up. 6. SML had yet to implement the upstream petroleum audit and minerals audit services, and therefore there could be no assessment as to whether GRA would derive value or benefit from that service. KPMG noted, however, that those are areas that could have significant revenue leakages, and thus suggested, among other things, that a comprehensive needs assessment be conducted to establish a need for those services. The pricing module used in the contracts was based on a variable fee structure. During its investigations, KPMG noted that such transaction monitoring services are usually priced using a fixed fee pricing module. The total fees paid under the contracts from 2018 to the date of suspension amounted to 1-point-something billion. No fee has been paid for the upstream petroleum audit and minerals audit service. The total fees estimated to be paid to SML under the 2023 contract for 5 years is 5-point-something billion, which averages to 5-point-something million, which averages to 1 billion per year. No, 5.1-something billion, which averages to about 1 billion per year. Here, recommendations. It is instructive that we begin this discussion on this note, on the full facts as received from the presidency. KPMG made the following recommendations, says the presidency. The government, acting through Ministry of Finance and the GRA, may terminate the contract with or without cause upon giving 120 days written notice before the effective date of termination stated in the termination notice. Upon termination, the government may be liable to pay SML for services already completed but not yet paid, and the government will not be entitled to a refund of any compensation already paid to SML regardless of the termination clause. B. In the event of termination without cause, the government becomes liable to pay SML a return on investment equivalent to the fair value of SML's investment in the respective contract. The total investment value in the contracts for the transaction audit and external price verification services and downstream petroleum audit services amounts to $44 million. The total investment value in the contract for the upstream petroleum audit and minerals audit services amounts to $133.4 million. The total investment value for all the services provided by SML to GRA amounts to $177.5 million. KPMG noted that SML did not provide supporting documents or relevant information to verify the investments it has made. GRA must verify the investment if any of the services provided under the contracts are terminated. C. The upstream petroleum and minerals audit could be a major source of revenue for the state, and if there are leakages, the impact could be significant. Therefore, KPMG recommended reviewing these services by conducting a comprehensive needs assessment and engaging stakeholders with diverse interests in their respective sectors. Furthermore, KPMG recommended the need for a value for money assessment in the contract performance process. Any contract for the provision of these services should comply with Section 33 of the PFMA Act. For the transaction audit, external price verification, and downstream petroleum audit services, KPMG recommended that since SML has been providing that service for over 4 years, it has gained experience and become more proficient. KPMG thus recommended renegotiating the price levels, including shifting from a variable to a fixed fee structure. Monitoring and evaluation of the services offered by SML should be done periodically in the contract. Also, there should be the incorporation of needs assessment into public procurement practices. The President has accepted the recommendations of KPMG and directs as follows. The upstream petroleum audit and minerals audit services have not yet been commenced, and no payments have been made in respect of those services. Therefore, they may be terminated. However, given that the upstream petroleum audit and minerals audit services could prevent significant revenue leakages, the President has directed that the Ministry and GRA conduct a comprehensive technical needs assessment, value for money assessment, and stakeholder engagement before implementing such services. 2. The transaction audit and external price verification services may also be terminated. According to KPMG's findings, GRA obtained partial value or benefit for those services. This was also due to a lack of monitoring on the part of GRA to ensure that SML performed the services as stipulated in the contracts. KPMG's investigations found that GRA has introduced external price verification tools as part of ICOMS among its other functions. This renders the reliance on SML for external price verification redundant. 3. There is a clear need for the downstream petroleum audit services provided by SML. GRA and the state have benefited from these services since SML commenced providing them. There has been an increase in volumes of 1.7 billion liters and an increase in tax revenue to the state of 2.45 billion Ghana cedis. KPMG also observed that there were qualitative benefits, including a 24/7 electronic real-time monitoring of outflow and partial monitoring of inflows of petroleum products at depots where SML had installed flow meters and 6 levels of reconciliation done by SML. This minimizes the occurrence of under-declaration. However, it is important to review the contract for downstream petroleum audit services, particularly the fee structure. Given the experience and proficiency of SML over the last 4 years of providing this service, the President has directed that the fee structure be changed from a variable to a fixed fee structure. Other provisions of the contract worth reviewing include clauses on intellectual property rights, termination, and service delivery expectations. Finally, SML's performance in any renegotiated contract should be monitored and evaluated periodically to ensure that it meets expectations. Any renegotiated contract should be compliant with Section 33 of the PFMA Act. The Ministry of Finance and Ghana Revenue Authority are to give effect to the above directives of the President immediately and provide the Office of the President with an update on the steps taken. The President has extended his sincere gratitude to KPMG for the thorough nature of the audit conducted. This is under the signature of the Director of Communications at the Office of the President, Eugene Ahin. Just a sneak peek into the documentary investigative piece that led to this audit.
Report or identify issues of under-declaration.
No, we don't get into that. That's why 3 billion, I'm not. That's why I told you from the beginning. I said I don't know about this 3 billion.
As we speak this morning, still on your website.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. In fact, to be honest, I don't even know website matter.
Per current arrangement, SML Ghana is entitled or will be paid over $100 million every year. This contract is for 10 years.
It's essentially a plug-in into the revenue stream of the state, taking money for no job done, essentially.
Using the ultrasonic flow meter at the outlet there is not the best way to manage a tank.
In a control room in Tema in the Greater Accra region, officials of Strategic Mobilization Ghana Limited explained their services to the 4th Estate News team.
We have transistors which are engulfed in the ultrasonic lampons or the real sets.
The company tried to convince our news team of its wild claims that it had helped to save billions of Ghana cedis that would have been lost in the downstream petroleum sector but for its intervention. More importantly, it tried to justify why it receives payments worth millions of Ghana cedis from the government of Ghana through its contract with the Ghana Revenue Authority, GRA.
Currently, we are installing a tank gating system.
By the end of our second day at SML Ghana, however, we were convinced that a company, with the help of Ghana's media, had made false and unsubstantiated claims and is paid millions of cedis in a deal that appears to lack value for money. A few hours after our meeting, some of the claims began to disappear from the company's website.
We were shocked at one point when government said they were bringing in an SML to actually sit at the depot where the product is lifted. And in fact, that is where there isn't much problem. Because when the product is lifted, MPA is able to see, how much product has been lifted through their gauging, tank gauging systems, and also the metering systems at the depot. So that was never the problem. The problem really was, how do you track it to where the tax is actually collected, or is supposed to be collected, for you to be able to make the money. So from day one, the importance of SML was questioned by all the industry players. You can talk to all the players in the sector and they will tell you that where SML is positioned, they cannot be doing revenue assurance for the state.
SML Ghana, like other private sector service providers, was engaged to curtail huge losses in the downstream petroleum sector. Some oil marketing companies, OMCs, which lifted petroleum products from the nation's depots, sold the products and refused to pay hundreds of millions of cedis of the tax, levies, and margins components on the petroleum products.
Some of these debts become quite heavy based on the OMC's liftings levels. So that's why some of these debts, and if the person is not stopped immediately from loading petroleum products, then it means you'll be accumulating as he goes on.
Interestingly, the tax is not even paid by the traders or the OMCs. It is the people who pay the tax. So if you buy any liter, every liter of petroleum product you buy, there is a tax component, which is about 2 cedis 30 pesos. That is supposed to go to government. So on top of the value of the petroleum product and the margins that are supposed to go to the business, government has imposed tax that the OMCs are just supposed to collect the tax and hand it over to the state. But in most cases they don't. And over time we've seen about 20% of revenues due to the state leaking into private hands.
That's just a peek into the documentary that has led to this KPMG audit and also a suit pending in the court. Bright, thank you once again for your time. In the next 20 minutes, Bright is going to give his position and that of the CSOs, and you saw they issued a statement reacting to the presidency's release on their audit. Bright, let's hear you.
And I hope you can hear me clearly.
Very clearly, sir.
First of all, we want to, of course, express our gratitude to Multimedia and Joy for the prime time support that you give to advocacy in this country by allowing us to explain these things to the people. The second thing is to reestablish again that we are all here discussing this issue because the fourth estate, with policy support or policy analysis support from ACEP, the Africa Center for Energy Policy, decided to delve deep into these matters, produce a documentary which sparked this whole investigation. In the president's release, if you read it carefully, nowhere does he mention this. He ends up praising KPMG, which was paid to do this work. Not a single word of support for the fourth estate and the like. We are happy at Imani that we're providing additional support to ACEP. We've done that already. We continue to do that going forward. But I think it's important in this country we recognize when people are contributing to public service. Let's take issues one by one. Some of them you've already, quite extensively hinted at them. What are SML's contracted services? There are 4 main ones. They do transaction audit services. Essentially, they look over your shoulder if you present information related particularly to import duties and taxes that are at the port level. So I'm not going to go into great detail, but you know that these SML's involvement in this activity in Ghana was based on an attempt to single source them to provide a service, when at that time, SML, in June 27, when this was done, had just been incorporated. Bear that in mind. In June 2017, when attempts were made to bring SML to come and provide these transaction audit services, even though companies like West Blue and others were already performing it at the port, SML had no track record, not only in this particular line of business, but in auditing in general. And you know, in this country, we have many auditing companies with capacity to do anti-fraud, etc., etc. This company had no background, nobody ahead of them. Somehow, somebody at the finance ministry or GRA had heard of their unique competencies when they are not being formed as a company. So that by June 2017, they were attempting to single source them to provide the service, which is to audit transactions related to tax revenue at the ports. 3 times they went to the Public Procurement Authority. And 3 times the Public Procurement Authority, which usually is not very strong as a bulwark against what politicians want to do, said that for this one we cannot approve. It's too problematic. So what did they do? GRA engaged the company as a subcontractor for West Blue. And then what did they do? They eventually kicked West Blue out. You know, there was a huge scandal in this country for many, many months as the government attempted to impose new providers in the port. When West Blue was kicked out, without PPA approval, this company was then made the main contractor. Then they added another service to it, external price verification. Essentially, when we are bringing things from overseas, the price of the item is correlated with the tax you pay. But if you lie about how much you bought the item for, you could change the amount of tax you pay in Ghana. So we want you to verify how much the pricing is before that item is brought to the country. We added that to SML. At that time, not even the board of GRA was aware. Somehow, somebody in power had determined that this company must be inserted in, regardless of what it takes. Secondly, no PPA approval. Then they decided that, this company is too good. And these matters happened very quickly before we had established any of these benefits, etc. And CBOAD or Ernst & Young reports and things like that are coming. Remember, keep that in mind. They decided then that they had to add another service to the list, which was the downstream petroleum monitoring, which simply means that when you go and buy petrol at the filling station, that tax that you are supposed to pay there, the OMC is supposed to collect it and take it to the government. Sometimes they don't do that. For that reason, they are going to help to prevent it. And I'll explain later on in the presentation why that makes no sense. And there's no logical basis for any of these arguments. Then, when it became very apparent that time was running, there was no approval, but much of this has not been regularized. Eventually, the government decided that, okay, we need to insert SML into the biggest port of all, the oil that is produced in Ghana offshore, and the gold and diamonds and other things that we produce in the country inshore. So what do? We set up a contract in which every single ounce of gold produced in this country, they will get a percentage. Every single ounce of gold, 0.75%. And every single barrel of oil that we produce in this country, this company will get 0.75% off the price of that oil. It was at that point that it was quite clear that this was going to be a massive, massive, massive bonanza for whoever it is that supports this agenda. So we need to get regularization. It was at that point that the matter was taken to the board. It was at that point that the matter was taken to PPA for ratification. Because remember, this company was already in there and doing the business anyway. So whatever PPA wanted to do at that point was more or less moot. So this is the history of the SML agenda. It's important that people bear that in mind. These are facts established by the president himself based on his review of the KPMG agreement. And let's go on to the second key issues. There are 2 aspects of the KPMG reports, which nobody has seen except the president, a few people. There are facts that KPMG has established, and then there are analysis that KPMG has done on the facts based on which it's made recommendations. It's very important that we separate the two, otherwise we get confused. So the key facts that KPMG established is what you've established, which is what you've described to your viewers. One of them being that the services are illegal. They are illegal because even the new contract that have been ratified by PPA and signed by the board, because of the Public Financial Management Act being multi-year contract, they must go back to Parliament. So until this contract, the current contract, the 2023 contract that governs the arrangement, and for which this company has been paid 1 billion Ghana cedis, until that contract goes back to Parliament, everything they are doing there is illegal. That's a fact that is established by KPMG. This is not analysis. The second fact is that, as I've already said, on the back of this illegality, 1 billion cedis have been paid. The third is that PPA does not have the power to retrospectively clear illegalities. The fourth is that in all of this, we are giving money to the company without knowing how much the company is spending and whether indeed the cost of these services warrants that kind of payments. No investment appraisals were done. But when they were asked to provide documents to enable KPMG establish how much it is that they've invested in this service, they refused to provide the documents, or they could not provide enough documents. Another fact that has also been established that there was no need for need analysis or value for money assessment. The president has now asked the Ministry of Finance and the GRA to go ahead and act on his instructions. We expect them to issue a press release telling us what exactly they will do. But first and foremost, there must be a value for money analysis. And the CSO movement in this country have offered pro bono services from tax analysts and petroleum economists around the world that will ensure that they don't spend additional money, unlike the money that has already been spent on this report. We also know that the live contract that exists today, the 2023 contract, still entitles SML to make almost $100 million a year for 10 years. Why is it 10 years? Because a 5-year contract, renewable again. And we know from the history of this company that there is no way in which that renewal will not be achieved. But at the very least, if you are doing an analysis, you look at exposure, and that exposure includes the possibility of renewal. So where do we get $100 million from? You look at the likely price increases in minerals and petroleum over the time, historical trend, and then you compute what would be the likely price. Then you strike that 0.75% for oil prices and the $0.75 per barrel for oil. So you look at production, and then you strike the 0.75% for price of gold, manganese, and other things we sell, and that's where we come with the we come to the $1 billion. We are happy to look at alternative analysis if SML or KPMG have done it, but this is based on what we have looked at from projections point of view. So these are the critical fact finding that KPMG made. Now, when KPMG moves from the facts to making analytical conclusions and then using that to make recommendations, here we have a problem. We have a problem because, as we stated from the outset, KPMG has a conflict of interest in this matter. It's been a service provider to GRA. It regularly looks for new business from GRA. We did not see how KPMG was going to be strict on GRA sufficiently because of this underlying challenge that it's continued to do business with GRA and looks forward to getting more business from GRA. So that was a problem. We saw that in South Africa when KPMG was brought in to review the famous Gupta contracts. And here, because of the fact that KPMG had these public sector contracts, it could not do a sufficiently objective job. And the fact of the matter is that KPMG's findings are now being misrepresented, even at the factual level. So even the facts that I've just said to you, people are trying to, spin and claim that KPMG have cleared SML. That's not what has happened. So KPMG's reputation impacted by this matter. And we know what happened in South Africa. KPMG leaders had to be sacked. KPMG more or less was almost kicked out of that country because of a similar situation where they were brought in to review a public sector contract and they could not do the job sufficiently. So my argument is that we must stick to the facts that they found, they established, because the facts are facts. Analysis and recommendations, we don't think KPMG is the right entity to do that because it's commercial interest. Secondly, there have also been analyses that are actually flawed. So forget about the conflict of interest. And when you look at KPMG's history in some of these matters, where you have these very sensitive matters, from the Rolls-Royce matter to the FIFA matter to the Co-op Bank to the HBOS, there have been consistent patterns where sometimes, because it's in a bank, it has a client that is also supposed to safeguard. It makes some of these analytical conclusions that leads to either losses or in some cases leads to corruption. So it's a very well-established pattern, and you can see on the screen major events in the world that anybody can go and check, from the Rolls-Royce, FIFA, HBOS issues, etc., etc. Now we come to the core of the matter. Do we need SML at all in this chain? First and foremost, there is the National Petroleum Authority. There is the main regulator in the sector. They are the ones who look at everything to do with the downstream petroleum sector. So all the fuel you buy, all the LPG, the aviation fuel, etc., etc., etc. Now, FPA has been telling this country that it is doing exactly what the SML claims it's doing for many years now, collecting millions of dollars to pay all manner of contractors. And on the basis of that, it's been telling us that there's been about 41% growth as of 2022 based on this work. We also know, in addition to spending all of these millions of dollars doing these specific activities, they've enlisted the Vice President of Ghana and his office to become a major proponent of the digitalization of the entire value chain. We have the ERDMS that was mentioned in the documentary. That means that you cannot load fuel in this country unless the government knows about it. Which means that there are flow meters that have already been established, not only at the level of the depot, but also at the retail level, and connecting the two. We know that money has been spent to import machinery from Singapore and elsewhere by ACIS and North Africa to do exactly the kind of things that SML is doing, to put flow meters at the depot, and they've already started at the retail level, and they are continuing. They are spending more money. The National Petroleum Authority tells us that the pilot was successful. 4,000 state filling stations were identified. 20 of them were used for the pilot. They are buying more equipment and implementing it there. And they set up a command center, and then they are putting some of these flow meters in the depots as well to connect the depots to the command center, and then connect the retail centers, the retail outlets to the command center. So, very simple. MPA is doing this automation at the retail level, and it's also decided to do it at the wholesale level. Then what exactly do we need another company to come in and put in another ultrasonic flow meters, etc., in these same locations, purporting to do the same thing? Either one of them is lying to us. Because if you look at the tenders that MPA has floated in this country to transform the whole fuel value chain, which everybody can go online and look at those tenders and the rest of it, and look at the descriptions of those projects, there's absolutely no difference. On top of that, the GRA itself, even before icons came to the picture, GCNet had incorporated their system, the GCMS, into the ERDMS. So essentially, when the fuel arrives in the port, it's already declared into a system that both GRA and MPA knows. And then it's connected to the ERDMS. So meaning that if you go and later pick fuel up from any level, that fuel that you picked up is already flagged. The problem has always been that in between transmission, they claim that there are technical losses. How you find out technical losses does not depend on the flow meter at one point or the other. But that's why I take that fuel from the depot, and some of it leaks on my way to the refill station. No flow meter or whatever will be able to address that matter. The only thing we can know is that you take 100 here, you deposited 80 here. So we are now sure that only 80 liters are now taxable. That we can know. And that system is already in place by connecting icons, ERDMS, and the flow meters that MPA is continuing to now implement at the level of the depots, and which millions of dollars are being spent. We know, for instance, that the industry members, which is what my very good friend Bemboache explained to you in the documentary, have stated that the work that SML is doing, the structure of the solution itself, is not viable because it's based on temperature shifts and temperature patterns that are not reconcilable with the way in which MPA has set up the whole arrangement, which is that you must transport at 20 degrees Celsius. And they have said this openly. Everybody in the industry is aware that these claims have been made that the Honeywell, SCADA, and remote terminal unit and the rest that the company SML is purporting to use is not compatible with the MPA structure that they've set up in the industry. We will now come to the heart of the matter. And here is where we disagree with KPMG the most, if indeed what the president is saying they said is the case. And it's in KPMG's interest that this report comes out, because people will continue to misrepresent what they did for whitewashing purposes. But if indeed that's what they said, that there have been incremental value increase in the volume of fuel consumed. Let's bring all of this down. They are saying that Ghanaians are buying more petrol. And because Ghanaians are buying more petrol, more taxes are being paid. And all of that is due to the work of SML. The question that we have to ask you is, historically, were we seeing increases in fuel consumption before SML came? Have the rate of increase changed to the point where we can say that SML's intervention has made a difference? Look at the graph that is on the screen. You will see that the pattern of increases in how much fuel we consume in this country is linked strictly to economic conditions. And for the different types of products involved, it's linked to economic use pattern changes or use case changes. That is why aviation fuel, during the time that we had COVID, the consumption of aviation fuel collapsed because why planes were not flying into and out of Ghana. And in the case of petrol, There are more cars every year being registered. On top of that, we have a lot of usage of diesel because industrial output in some cases have increased. People are using more generators, a whole bunch of things. You cannot therefore make any claim that the increase in petroleum consumption, or gasoline consumption, or diesel consumption, etc., can be tied to SML unless you do sophisticated statistical analysis that isolate the historical trend. That says that if there was nothing at all happening except the original practice of more cars and things like that, this is the way the trend line will have looked. But because of SML, that has changed. But when you look at the map, SML entered the picture in 2020. The rate of increase was the same before and after. That's the kind of analysis you want to look at the KPMG report to see how they address that issue. Because without that, we cannot make any basis at all. We cannot establish any basis at all that there's an increment in consumption. On top of that, taxes are also linked to prices sometimes. Some of the levies and things that we have on the fuel are price sensitive. We know that the price of fuel doesn't stay the same. We have changes in pricing. These changes in prices affect the tax take of the government. How do you isolate the part that is due to SML? The only way you can do that is there's only one scientific method. You need a baseline for under declaration in the sector. Because remember that it's not that if the fuel consumption increases by 10%, everybody who sold that extra 10% will hide their taxes. They will pay taxes. It is some percentage who do so. It is identifying that percentage that then gives us the real measure of our risk as a country. They can say that, okay, anytime if fuel consumption increases by 100 liters, we know from this baseline study that 10 liters is underdeclared. In that case, that 10 liters costs us 100 cedis. So if SML has come in and we've seen that volume has increased by this extra margin, then we suspect that under declaration which are vanished from that extra whatever due to SML's work is this percentage. You don't use the overall increment because otherwise you're assuming that every time we increase consumption of petroleum, everybody who sold that extra petroleum refused to pay tax, which cannot be correct. So you have to use the baseline to make the analysis. Secondly, everything that you have talked about in terms of increasing of whatever it has nothing to do with the problem we face, which CBOA, Ernst & Young, and the rest have been talking about. What we face is not establishing that there's liability, that there's a tax that somebody has not paid. The problem is that when we've established that somebody owes the tax, they still don't pay you. That is why NPA has a list of OMCs, oil marketing companies, that are not remitting the tax. It's not like they are hiding their way, and because of that, the losses are all due to the fact that we don't know who has elected which fuel, and we don't know how much they've sold, so we don't know what tax we should collect. No, a lot of the losses are due to the fact that we know the overseas who have collected the fuel because they are DMS, and we know they've sold it, but they have still not remitted the taxes. Because remember that when I pick up the fuel, it takes me some time to sell, and over that range of period, unless you are still monitoring closely, if I've not remitted all the taxes, you will not know until you know for sure when all the fuel was sold. So those time lags and things create complications in ability to remit the tax. What has that got to do with flow meters and things like that anyway? Except of course that there is smuggling and other things like that, where those smuggling activities and the rest require us to also monitor the fuel leaving the country legally and those that may be living illegally. All of these matters are already in the NPA digital suite, which SML doesn't provide. So SML does not have capacity to know the trusts that are leaving the country, sending fuel to Burkina Faso, whether they are genuine or they are not genuine, and things like that. So on what basis can we say that we can attribute blocking all or sealing all these loopholes to SML? That cannot make sense. It's the infrastructure as a whole that NPA has put in place allows that to happen, and that infrastructure was there before SML. And while SML has been there, it's still going on, and Ghanaians are paying for it. If all that infrastructure is useless and everything is about SML, then let's cut all of those things at Rock Africa, near DMS. All of these service providers who are also taking millions of dollars. Let's cut them all out and leave everything to SML. We ensure that, and we are completely certain, that when it comes to try to expand this service to cover the minerals and the petroleum, it was simply a Japan issue at the time. When the Japan field, somebody decided that, okay, if we cannot get the percentage of the royalties that we wanted from every ounce of gold sold in Ghana, then we'll do even more. We'll add the oil as well, and we'll create a mechanism to get a certain percentage out of that, because it doesn't make any sense to try and claim that because the tallow and whatever it is are lying about the oil produced, you will use some mechanism to try and establish that, and for every barrel of oil we produce, you will then be entitled to a percentage. What logic is that? So that KPMG says that we should move from a variable fee to a fixed fee. They are not explaining the claim, or the president is not explaining the claim to understand. What this contract meant was that every barrel of oil produced in this country this company will get $0.75. Every barrel, every ounce of gold produced in this country, this company will going to get a percentage of the price. On what logic? This is what we fought against in the Japan, and this is what we're going to continue to fight against. Using every tool available, including making representations to international partners and things like that, until there's a proper assessment and not a whitewash. Thank you very much.
You want to see the full reports, right?
Absolutely, without doubt.
You are disappointed that it didn't come along the press release?
RTI demanded.
Right.
So the president should do the honorable thing and release it.
All right. Right. If you have time, please hold on there because we just may come back to you. And Honorable Nusa Hussaini, he ends on a note of a Japa and SML in suit and tie. Is that suspicion of state capture by people in government and seeking to benefit even if it happened that they left government? Is it fair? Or I'm asking the wrong person?
Well, thank you, Samson, thank you for having me this morning. And I should thank Bright and all the civil society organizations, and particularly the Fourth Estate, for doing a comprehensive expose on the SML and other matters. This government, Nana Akufo-Addo's government, has recorded more than 100 scandals since it took over power. Samson, has it come to your attention as a journalist and a legal person that Nana Akufo-Addo has become incredulously predictable in matters concerning the behavior and conduct of his appointees, especially where they touch and concern criminal conduct? When he appointed KPMG to do this analysis of the contract and investigate into the circumstances surrounding the award of the contract to SML, many people raised suspicion because of the potential conflict of interest situation in which KPMG was going to find itself. Many other people said that the president will whitewash the report if it was damning.
He hasn't done that, has he?
Yes.
He has not.
You have not seen the report, have you?
I've seen at least the portions that he has
the redacted portions.
Us.
The redacted portions.
Yes.
So, and then you are giving him the benefit of the doubt. You are entitled to that. But what prevents the president from releasing the entire report? Are we not entitled to an open, transparent, and accountable leadership of this country? I mean, clearly, it should leave you in no doubt that institutions established to serve the public, when they are captured by powerful private interests, it must manifest itself in contracts of that nature. Contracts that flagrantly violate the laws of the country, fail to comply with the institutions established for the purposes of securing value for money for the people of this country. It leaves you in no doubt that there must have been something compelling enough to motivate a minister to ignore all the safeguards in our laws, which would ensure that we have value for money for contracts entered into with companies.
You say contracts that violate laws.
Yes.
The facts from what the presidency has fed us so far, 2 occasions, PPA approval was not given.
Yes.
Was sought but not given.
Yes.
But they went ahead.
Yes.
But subsequently,
yes,
a new regime of the GRA went and did a ratification. And you know that in law,
my brother,
that cures all the wrong.
No, ex facto ratification of an illegal contract does not operate to restore the illegality and clean the contract of the illegality that was committed earlier on. It doesn't do that.
Illegality because of what?
Illegality because it failed to comply. First of all, the contract ought to have been laid before Parliament. It was not laid. Section 33 of the Public Financial Management Act. The contract was supposed to be approved by a GRA board. Was it approved? No. So if GRA board then goes to PPA for a ratification of an otherwise illegal contract, does it operate to make the contract legal? Does it? Then if that is so, what will be governance about?
What is illegality about? Even though KPMG ends, according to the president's release, by requiring a needs assessment. Whilst it says the processes lacked needs assessment, it emphasizes that that is not a requirement of law. But when it was done with the entire project, it says going forward, you should do it with a needs assessment.
Yes, so they were quite frank in that recommendation that because needs assessment, the conduct of needs assessment was not a prerequisite, okay, of a contract, okay, and so because of that, you can hold them at fault for failing to do a needs assessment before the award of the contract. But mind you, look at the caveat. They themselves, KPMG, recognizes that a contract of such a nature must have a needs assessment. Because on what basis are you entering the contract? On what basis?
So it may be prudent, but it is not unlawful. So they have done it.
Well, I'm not going on the basis of the non-compliance or non-performance of the needs assessment to invalidate the contract.
Okay.
I'm saying that there were provisions of the statute that required compliance that were never complied with. And not having complied with those provisions, you can waive them off. You can't. Can you? You can't. And doesn't it strike you as odd that in all the discussions that we're having, we've not heard that the Attorney General's opinion was sought?
Why do you need Attorney General's opinion?
Who is the legal advisor to government and by extension the state?
There was an audit for KPMG to do.
No. I mean the contract. I'm not talking about the president just exercised his powers under Article 58 to appoint KPMG. I'm not talking about that. That was an eminent domain. I'm saying that you are entering into a contract to bind the state. And you're going to pay huge amounts of money, public money, to that contractor. And you don't need the Attorney General's advice.
You don't know that for a fact.
I know that for a fact because in all the reports, and as a lawyer and a former member of parliament and a politician, in reading all the reports, I have been looking out for the Attorney General's opinion on the contract.
It's possible in the report itself. KPMG may have stated that Attorney General gave this report or that report.
Yeah, so it's possible. Speculations are always welcome. But I'm saying that I've not seen one. And I'm not prepared to speculate. Now, but when even the second contract that was prepared, sent to, where they thought of adding the upstream sector and the mining sector to the contract, go read the letter that was written by the director who calls himself Chef de Cabinet. That contract was prepared by the legal department of the Ministry of Finance and sent to the GRA and advises the GRA to send it to their legal department for review. Nowhere in that letter is it mentioned that after a review, the contract should be sent to the Attorney General's department. So clearly, something obscure was happening. There was a clear intention to keep the contract out of the public space. And so, that is why I support civil society organization, that such a matter must have an open, transparent, rigorous, and meritocratic evaluation of the contract and the outcomes of the matters.
You recognize that this is also being looked into by the OSP, Office of Special
The
Prosecutor?
OSP ought to have, immediately the report came out, I thought that the OSP would have conducted a corruption risk assessment. And by now, the OSP should have even been out with this report. Because Christian Soti, who is the MD of SML, was the controller of this country.
Controller and Accountant
General of this country between the years 2005 to 2009. He was. Now, in between 2017 to 2019, he was the technical advisor to the Customs Ghana Revenue Authority.
Commissioner General.
Commissioner General. And so, on what basis would such a person who haven't occupied those offices now transition into SML, which is providing critical service, in their opinion,
We may all be asking questions about this, but what exactly is wrong about it? That he has been your Controller and Accountant General, and I suppose he still is a board member of the Internal Audit Agency. And then he occupied the position you speak about, technical advisor to the GRA Commissioner General. Then in the year 2000, when he steps down from that job, he goes to manage SML, which has secured a contract 2 years earlier with the GRA.
Everything is wrong with that.
Can't the relationship be severed from the contractual relations?
Everything. That is actually a red flag. That the person who was technical advisor to the GRA at the time this contract was entered into, which contract was opaque, was not made available to the public, did not go through all the standards of scrutiny, has now transited to manage the company. Did he influence the award of the contract? Did he have anything to do with the establishment of the contract? Did he see any loophole that he's seeking to exploit that led to the formation of a contract? Was there insider dealing? There leads to a lot of questions. This is why you cannot just wish this thing away. You can't.
Interesting.
And that's why we all must be worried.
Interesting. I'm imagining the cross-examination if he appears in court.
Yes.
Because they have sued their Forte State.
Yes. And Samson, my concluding statement. Sometimes I find it very difficult to talk about a president. Because all of us, while in private practice, admired him when he was on his feet. But have you realized, since assuming the presidency, the nearest Akufo-Addo has come to admitting wrongdoing of his appointees was the fact that he admitted an error of judgment by reason of being misled by his minister in the Americas. That's the nearest he's come to accepting culpability. Is it good enough for good governance? No. No.
I remember there was Osafo comments. He later came to say, by hindsight, Osafo should not have said Aisha Wang.
On hindsight. But as a president, if your minister makes comments that goes to the very foundation of your country, and that is freedom and justice, that everybody or anybody who commits a crime, the people of Ghana must have justice if that crime is committed against us. Okay. That your minister weighs that for financial inducement, financial support. The president keeps quiet, keeps mute, until Aisha Wang resurfaced and was caught. That gave the president a voice. But I say that you can go check. The nearest the president has come to admitting culpability of the conduct of his ministers was on the basis of being misled. That was all. Even in the case of Cecilia Dapa, where we expected the minister to condemn the fact that the president to condemn the fact that a minister of state has such huge amounts of money at home, and prudence required that that money be kept in the bank. The president told us that he believed in the credibility and the innocence of the minister.
Our standards are not the same. In South Africa, I think, was it a speaker of parliament or somebody like that, had, was it 20,000 or how much was it? They suffered because they kept that money in the house.
In the house?
In the UK, similar situations have happened. But our standards are not the same.
Our standards are not the same, and that's why our democracy
let me come to SML now, and thankfully, Yasa Wasapong is here. Well, you have, on the back of the president's release, been saying that you have been vindicated in this process. Help explain to Ghanaians what you mean by that.
Samson, thank you for having us here, and thanks to your cherished viewers for this opportunity to share our SML narrative with them. In the earlier submission, you talked about the so-called expose that was leveled against SML. Now, we say that the KPMG's report, as President has issued a statement on it, exonerates SML and confirms the need for the company's proven services because, first of all, an allegation has been leveled against SML that we have taken a 10-year contract, which has been disproved. Second, an allegation was leveled against us that we have taken $100 million or been paid $100 million, which is not true. Again, in the documentary, it says that there is duplication of work, there is duplication of effort to the work that NPA is doing. And it has been repeated here. I will come to that. But that is clearly lack of understanding of domain knowledge. Because I have proof here, and I'll give evidence that NPA endorsing the coming to the downstream, the initiative taken by GRA to bring SML on board in the downstream. I will give evidence to that. So that one also has been put down because SML is doing a fantastic job. And we are adding benefit to the revenue generation in the downstream petroleum. Now, the GRA awarded the 2023 consolidated contract to SML following due processes. That's what we have to say about this. Because SML is a legit company who practices best practices. We are ethical and we will not do anything that is misconduct. The other thing also is that SML, the whole contract is a risk-reward contract. That means that SML bears the financial cost of the whole contract. Government has not given SML a peso. Everything that we have done so far has been paid for by SML. And then the payments that we have received also is a performance base. That means that what government is getting in the downstream is not what we are being paid for. We are paid for based on the performance. So if when we came, the benchmark for the volumes that were tax volumes was around 240 million liters. That we don't touch it. Government is not going to pay us from there. But anything that we add from the benchmark, which we have raising the volumes in the taxable volumes from 240 million liters to 450 million liters. So the difference between these volumes is what we are paid on. So basically, SML is being paid on what the additional or excess gain volume that we add to what is there. That is what we mean by the SML's, the contract is a performance-based contract. Now, SML has fully sponsored the contract and is delivering. Government has not paid a peso. When you look at this, this is an exoneration against what was leveled against us, that we have been given this, we have 10 years, we are duplicating effort and all of that. That is why we say that SML has been exonerated by the KPMG's report, given the president's statement from it. Now, I want to...
You've mentioned a few things. I just want us to get our viewers and listeners to also follow us. As you may be aware, there's one important thing you have mentioned, but it is a central question in your suit against the Fourth Estate in the court, and I'm their lawyer, so I will not interrogate that for ethical reasons. But you say that SML's experience has been proven. The report is to the effect that now you have gained 4 years experience. You had absolutely no experience at the start. Ghanaians are asking, because this is their money, how did you get such a contract by sole source when you don't have prior experience? Because according to the law, to gain that kind of contract by sole source, in this respect, you would have gained it because you are the only ones with the best experience in the field.
SML's solution that we are offering is the one of its kind. It's not a generic solution that you can go to the market and buy. We've heard people saying, you are deploying meters, meters can be bought. Yes, you can buy meters. We've seen some of the industry players who have gone to buy the meters. It's there. What you do with the meters and the benefits that the meters is able to bring, that is what makes the difference. SML has fused together proprietary software and hardware technologies to be able to give the innovative solution that we have given to the problem that was there. Now, what we can say about this is that what makes a business, and then when we come to not having experience, it is not true. SML was given the downstream contract because we have proven service with GRA. And the transaction audit is a proven service enough because it's a replication. We have deployed one of our audit and assurance solution in the transaction audit. And based on that, they said that we have this same issue. And we also did our need assessment and presented to GRA an unsolicited proposal. And we said, look, the issue of revenue leakage, that is becoming a national security issue. We have a solution to it.
No, the question of experience. When Manasseh, they engage your boss, he spoke about the company previously being a timber company and has now come to do this job. And I'm asking, convince Ghanaians, were you involved in rendering such services, to anybody at all whatsoever, to be able to win sole or single source, as it were, contract? You know that in clause 40 of section 40 of the Act for Procurement, you can be source single or sole source where the goods that we are looking for, the works or services that we are looking for, are only available from a particular supplier or contract, or if a particular supplier or contractor has exclusive rights in respect of the goods, works or services, and no reasonable alternative or substitute exists. This is the overriding guidelines. And the people in the industry, you hear some of them, Ben Boachi, they tell us about the other players who already existed and how they can't understand how you got it. The second requirement is where there is an urgent need for the goods, works or services, and engaging in tender proceedings or any other method of procurement is impractical due to unforeseeable circumstances giving rise to the agency, which is not the result of a dilatory conduct on the part of the procurement entity. And finally, where owing to a catastrophic event, there is an urgent need for the goods, works, or technical services, making it impractical to use other methods of procurement because of the time involved in using those methods.
Okay, Samson, like when you started, you said you are a legal person. I'm not. So with the issue of PPA, with the issue of sole sourcing, I will leave it with the legal people. But what I have to say about this matter with relating to expertise in that, the question that I want to ask is that with what you are reading, it's talking about innovation. What SML has brought is an innovative solution that does not exist. It's just like before Facebook, there was no Facebook.
Where did you come from? That's basically the question. It's not a question of law.
SML is a company on its own. Okay.
With experience in what?
With collaborating and the point is, what makes a company? For instance, we are here multimedia. I think that your CEO, you are not the CEO. What he did was to have the vision. He had the dream. He brought experts like yourself together and then financed it, and it's working. So SML had a vision that for a country to be able to offer, for a country to be able to realize the full potential of revenue growth in the sector, you need to leverage innovative solutions. We have done the needs assessment, and we know that GRA don't have a domain full cycle control. There are gaps. And that is why there is tax revenue leakage. And it's rapidly becoming a national security issue. And we said, we have a solution.
Okay, so we should discount experience here.
Experience is that you bring the team. And what we have done is that we went straight to Houston. We have collaborative and partnership arrangement with top-notch, #1 industry experts.
I've been on a procurement board as its lawyer before, and they take the things that they need to take. Once there is no mention or evidence of experience, we just take you off. You don't qualify, you just get out. The need for, SNIT documentation, tax documentation. Once you don't provide it, we just take you out, you are gone. And then we consider all others who may have. But here's the question. Are people justified to say the PPA on 2 occasions declined giving approval for this because of this issue, that you didn't have experience?
Like I said, this is a legal issue, purely legal issue. And I will not want to put myself there. But what I would say is that a contract can go back and forth when it's getting done properly. It doesn't make it illegal. It doesn't make it bad. It's like writing the thesis or even getting the visa. You can be bounced many times. But when you are ready,
there are basic things you need to get the visa. If you don't submit the basic things, you'll be thrown out.
So when you submit it, they give it to you. So you can go for 3 times. And when you submit what they want, they give to you. There are many people who have gone for the visas, been bounced 4 times, 8 times. But when you go and you give them what they want,
you think this is a good example in this context?
If you are writing, the contract was in the making, and it goes through processes. You see? And that is what has happened. It's no different. People who know, like I've said, I'm not a legal person, but legal people, when you engage them, they will tell you that this is not illegal. At the end of the day, what matters is that the contract has been signed. SML is working legally in this country. That is what matters. And when it comes to experience, we have partners that we work with who have hundreds of years of industry experience. And that is what matters.
You also mentioned
proving service also from the transaction audit qualifies us to be able to do the downstream work because it's the same audit and assurance.
You mentioned that there is something that you have been vindicated about a payment of $100 million, right?
Mm-hmm.
You were reading. Do you want to read that again, that you have not been paid?
$100 million was not paid to SML.
Okay. So this is in reaction to the documentary?
The documentary.
Right. Have you read or listened to the documentary? They didn't say you have been paid. They say that the value,
But you cannot say a value of a value of a contract when the contract has not been done, when the contract is based on performance. So you are making estimations that would mislead viewers.
So you are projecting a claim that does not exist.
And you have
that the documentary said you have been paid. The documentary says the value of the contract as of 2023 was over $100 million. That's what they said.
SML will be paid, I've also listened to this. SML will be paid $100 million every year. That is what the documentary put out there to viewers. And many people took it to say that SML has taken $100 million, which puts us in a very bad light, which is wrong. And that is what we are saying, that we have been exonerated, that people who believe that SML has taken money illegally now can see clearly that this is an attempt to discredit SML, bring down our reputation. That is what we are saying. Now, I just want to...
The last issue you raised, that the contracts, as it is, you have complied with every legal thing and so on. Do you realize that the audit and the presidency statement confirms that because it's a multi-year contract, there's a need for parliamentary approval? You have ministerial and parliamentary. There's no parliamentary approval. So how do you say it complies with every legal requirement?
Like I have said, we are not the custodian of the contracts. We are beneficiaries. So I would defer that question to the custodians of the
go to
contract,
what you wanted to go
GRA
to. Right.
And then the finance ministry.
Go to what you
Let
wanted
them do
to go
that.
to.
So I have seen a classic case of the first gentleman displaying lack of domain understanding. SML is not working for NPA. SML don't have anything to do with NPA. SML is working with GRA, and GRA contracted SML for what? There is a critical need to plug in revenue leakage in the tax revenue. That is why SML was brought into the downstream petroleum. So we are working with GRA. We don't work with NPA. What SML came into the downstream petroleum to do, first of all, to support GRA, to plug in this challenge. And what have we done? Both NPA and GRA in the downstream petroleum, who represent the government, they both don't have meters. They rely on the depot meter. When they were making the claim, the first gentleman who came to make the claims, he's saying that NPA has flow meters. NPA, it's a lie. That is not true. And NPA was certified to that. We have a copy of a letter here. Let me read a portion of this. This is from NPA. What NPA is saying, the title of this letter is Installation of Electronic Metering System by Strategic Mobilization Ghana Limited. The NPA over the past years has instituted some technological interventions in the petroleum downstream industry aimed at improving controls and curbing illicit activities in the downstream in the industry. The authority plans to introduce further measures to monitor inflows and outflows of petroleum products from the depots in the country. It has therefore taken note with keen interest that the initiative by the GRA to install electronic metering systems at the depot. The authority, however, would like to be appraised on the functionalities of the electronic metering systems. We therefore hereby request for closer collaboration between the two authorities, that is NPA and GRA, so as to avoid duplication of efforts in our attempt to sanitize the petroleum downstream industry. This is an NPA letter. This is clearly showing that NPA is not doing the work that SML was brought into the downstream to do.
Let's look at some bigger pictures. And Ghanaians are asking that you were paid 1 billion cedis. The report says there was the increment is 2.4 billion cedis. Are you able to tell Ghanaians what percentage of the increment you are entitled to, that you are able to do work for 2 billion and you benefit from 1 billion? Do you think it's a justifiable question?
Okay, before I come to that, let me finish this, because this is very important information that Ghanaians need to know.
Which one is that?
The duplication of effort, because clearly there is lack of domain understanding, and that is
lack
what
of domain understanding, including your own IT guru. In the documentary, Manasseh asked him a direct question. If you were to choose between your system and what the MPA has, which one will you? And he says the MPA's own is superior. Yeah. He asked the MPA boss, Mustafa Hamid, what is going on? He says, I don't understand what is happening. And he says, with emphasis, that he intends to call all of you, the parties, to understand what exactly you are doing, because from where he sits, what you are doing is potentially duplicitous, his words.
Well, and I have the letter to prove also, because this is a letter signed by Honorable Mustafa Hamid, also saying that it is good initiative that we even go ahead and form operational team for installing tank gauging system, which Bryce Simons was saying that NPA is doing it. That is why I want to set the record straight that what they are saying SML is doing, NPA is doing, is wrong. It's not the situation in the industry, okay? So NPA are regulators. They are ensuring that product quality is good, pricing is fair. They are ensuring that they give licensing for people, the BDCs and the OMCs. That is their work. They concern with the loading, the trading of the products. GRA, on the other hand, is the authority to ensure that they collect tax in the downstream.
Does it bother you that the assessment cumulative of the work you do, which is needed to determine the questions of tax, when that question came up in the documentary, it was established clearly by the GRA that they don't depend on your work to determine the tax. So the question Ghanaians have been asking, what is the use of your work?
That is what I'm coming to. So now we work with GRA. What do we do? SML has provided meters that they didn't have, both NPA and GRA. They don't have meters. Yet we are selling, or we are trading and monitoring petroleum products. We have deployed that meters. And now what that is doing is that it's checking the accuracy of the meter, that the business people's meter, which is the depot meter that both NPA and GRA rely on. Now also we have digitized the waybill, that is the pin sheet in the downstream. What this waybill does is that if there is a dispute, we can show with so many, if viewers Google OMC's indebtedness with GRA, there are so many OMCs who are owing government, and they went to court. GRA cannot take government's money for government because there is no evidence. The pin sheet is not there because they were stored in sacks before we came. We have digitalized that. And what this means is that we have the information that this tanker at this day loaded this product. And so when we sit for reconciliation, after the data has been transferred to GRA system, which is the ICOM systems, we have the evidence to know that the data that was transferred from the ELDMS, which is the MPA system, is the same that is in the ICOMs.
Interesting.
Before SMLs come in,
okay.
And then apart from the digitization and the meters, we are giving real-time insights.
All right.
The lack of real-time insight in the petroleum industry
the report confirms that.
Is the loss of revenue.
Okay.
If you don't have insight into what is happening now, you are not able to stop OMCs who have exceeded their limit.
So as we understood, your services were that you were checking under declaration, dilution, and diversion of petroleum products.
No. We will not go there. I will not go there because what this is saying is that
this was on your website.
I'm coming there. Now, the website, in the person who is writing this own statement, he says that where we advertise, a website, Samson, you know what a website is. It's a place that brands or companies advertise what they can do. They create brand awareness. They interact with their clients. They tell potential clients, this is what we do. It's not a scope of work of a contract.
Oh, so you were speaking in general terms, what you are involved in.
SML is not made by GRA. SML is a company on its own. We are open for business. We can do gas revenue collection. We can do revenue assurance and audit for electric. We can do for water. We can do revenue assurance for public sector institutions. We have the innovative solution.
So you do this, but it's not connected to this contract.
Yes. So for the person who is doing this or writing this, to say that we want to assess, we are doing an investigation that is assessing the need of the contract. So from there, we jump straight to the website to see that they are doing the work that they say they will do. It's wrong. It's misleading.
So what do you then say? What do you then say to Christian Soti, your managing director, who said this was on the website in error, and the GRA were also unhappy about this piece of information on your website?
The website is not the scope of the scope of work of the contract. When the president wanted to ascertain this allegation, what did he do? He told KPMG, this is the directive. Go and check for me the scope. What is the work? Check the current activities of the company against the scope of the contract and see whether they align or there are deviations.
I get that. But if this is what you do generally, and your MD says this was put there in error, then right after that interview, you take this down from your website. How do you explain that?
We've not done anything of the sort. The whole expose, so-called, has been proven to be a lie and misleading video to misguide and disinform Ghanaians about a reputable company, a multi-million-dollar company that is working so hard to bring revenue to the nation for development. That is what
I asked you that question.
That is what was
I asked you that question. 2 billion, and you get 1 billion. How do you justify that?
Yes, let me come there. Now, if you look at what we said, we've thrown that out, and we are saying that we have done more than that, and the source that KPMG is used for this, we don't accept it.
Oh, KPMG is wrong.
We disagree with that. If you look at the response that we brought, SML's response, press release, that is what we are saying, that you cannot use the data source, which is the NPA and SLS data, to mark our performance. Because the reason why earlier on I was saying that I need to make very clear distinction between what we are doing and what NPA is doing. There is a volume that we have. When we are lifting products, there are loading volumes. That is the NPA's volume. And then we have taxable volumes. That is the volume that comes to government to take tax from. That volume
is what we are concerned about.
All right.
That volume is what SML was brought into the scene to make sure that it comes to the level of the NPA.
I want to say thank you. I want to say thank you very much.
You are say some few things.
Yeah, just in.
You see, first of all,
2 minutes or so.
Is that your contract? Was this company initially?
You're asking him a questions for answers.
No.
Okay.
I just want to understand something because I've read somewhere that this company was initially dealing in forestry products.
No, it is rather has a history in timber.
In timber, yes. Yeah. Timber is a forestry product. There's a history in timber, so it's a forestry product. Well, you see, so let me say to all Ghanaians, it's very important that even with the discussions we've had this morning, apart from what we've read, this contract appears to be an opaque contract, shrouded in secrecy, smacks of corruption, and riddled with illegality.
You have said that already.
Yes, so, well, the president should release the report. But I can assure you, and I assure the whole of Ghanaians, that if the president fails, refuses, or neglects to release the report, in 7 months' time, he will be gone. The report will be made up.
All right.
And you know something?
Yes.
Time does not run.
Thank you.
Is the commission.
Thank you. Bright, if I can get just about 2 minutes of your wrapping statement with you. It's been a bit difficult to get to admit some things which are actually factual. On their website, they stated that the SML digitalization of downstream petroleum product measurement has stemmed the tide of underreporting, diversion, and dilution of fuel products, and general non-compliance in the petroleum industry sector, end quotes. She's telling me a different story now here, but we can't have this forever. We must stop at a point. So your final comments, maybe in 2 minutes, please.
It's important that, your guest, Ms. Sewaipa, if I'm correct, does 3 things. One is he insults my intelligence and claims I don't have domain knowledge to comment on the matter. And then secondly, she accuses me of misinforming the public and peddling lies. And then thirdly, she refuses to engage with the fact that the contract that her company has collected 1 billion cedis from and which pays her salary is illegal according to the president of the country because it does not have parliamentary approval. Let's tackle the first issue around the meters, which he claims, I have no domain knowledge because I don't seem to understand that MPA is not their customer. Of course, MPA is not their customer. They have a contract with GRE. But the GRE systems must interconnect with the MPA systems in order to have an end-to-end value chain system. And it is the MPA itself, working together with Rock Africa and others, that have announced that they've started implementing flow tests at various depots and retail outlets. And that's an ongoing process. They've done a pilot with 20 stations, and that is continuing. I didn't make those things happen. Rock Africa said it has a partnership with Access from Singapore, and that these mechanisms are being provided, and over time, MPA will have end-to-end visibility. What she's establishing now on the show is that MPA is lying to Ghanaians about these interventions. Now, if indeed MPA is correct in its assessment that the ERDMS, backed by these systems, will achieve the end goal, right? Then what the work that they are doing is duplicative. So that's number one. So I didn't make this up. This is information that everybody can go and check. The second thing that it's also important, establish without any doubt whatsoever that the solutions that they are put out on the market are on-the-shelf solutions. These are Honeywell solutions. We've looked at those items, we've looked at the specifications and the rest of it. There's nothing innovative or original about it. Anybody can go and get it. That leads then to the question that you asked. Having been formed in February 2017, where the people that have founded the company had a background in timber producing, on what basis was it clear that the company had the systems and the culture in place to benefit from a single sourcing arrangement? But we have companies in this country that have been doing this already. And when the fact of the matter is that this particular open source single sourcing arrangement was considered invalid by the PPA. You cannot run away from that.
All right.
You don't get from them within 4 months. Get a single source arrangement.
Well, she says if you try the first time, you fail, you go again. Despite that they are an ethical company, if they are refused twice, they will go a third time, and they were lucky, third time.
You don't then continue collecting the money for 4 years, yeah, and then have it ratified. After you have been rejected by the PPA, the government continues paying you. And for that reason, Ms. Eva gets the salaries that she gets, which gives her the confidence to come into the studio of Joy FM and accuse the rest of us of ignorance and lack of intelligence in addressing this matter. I think that she's been very unfair to us.
All right.
But the point is very clear. The contract that they are currently operating on is illegal or is laid before the people's representative in Parliament. There's no doubt about that.
That's not their fault. That's not SML's fault. That is the state's. That's the duty of the state.
True. But the duty of the state must now be performed. They must send a contract to Parliament. They must stop paying them until that illegality is addressed. And then we'll meet them in Parliament.
All right. Bright Simmons, thank you very much. I'm sorry. We have to take a break.
If you are a company,
no, we can't go on and.
No, I'm just going to make this point. If you are a company, you have a duty to ensure that your other contractor, your partners, comply with the law.
Especially when you are dealing with the state.
Because it is it leads to reputational damage.
Thank you very much. My guest on this matter that's really very, very okay. Ya Sewa Sapong, Director of Support Services Strategic Mobilization Limited, Inus Afuseni, lawyer, former MP Tamale Central, and former Minister Lands and Natural Resources, Roads and Highways. Bright Simmons is Honorary Vice President, Imani Africa. From what I can see, we obviously may not be able to do the third issue. So we will go and come back and deal with the second one. We'll be right back.